Here we are at Maha's. That is the lineup. How do you feel right now?
Disappointed
Yeah.
and kind of frustrated. We drove all our way across the town to come to Maha's, but look at the lineup.
You know what we did last time that was kind of smart is we called and asked how big the lineup was, and then a guy told us. Should have done that this time. We don't learn, man.
These people who are standing doesn't guarantee that these are the only people.
Oh, that's true.
They
You're
could be
right.
representatives for their family of 4, family of 5, and their families or their kids or somebody who's elderly might be waiting inside their car.
That's true. Last time in the lineup, it was one gentleman, but his entire family of 8 was in the minivan around the corner.
Yeah, for some people that's a small wedding party. It's a wedding party waiting outside a small restaurant to be seated. I'm sure they're gonna wait at least 90 minutes. At least 90 minutes.
That's like a 2-hour lineup. I'm not even kidding, because once you get into Maha's, you don't leave. You don't leave. It's like the Hotel California.
And again,
Hi, and welcome to my video. This week I'm sharing a recipe for a simple one-pot pulao that is made from fresh rice. That's right, not leftover rice, not rice that's been in the fridge, fresh rice that you are going to cook at the same time as the rest of the other ingredients. This is possible. And what's more, your rice will be fluffy, the grains will be perfectly separated from each other. You can use fresh or frozen ingredients, and the whole thing comes together in less than 25 minutes once you have your prep done. Basmati makes a really beautiful and fluffy pulao, so that's what I'm going to be using in this recipe, and I encourage you to do the same. But of course, use what you have on hand. For the veggies, I am using peas, corn, and carrots. You can use fresh items or frozen items. They will cook up in much the same way. Now when it comes to spices, I've opted for cardamom, bay leaf, coriander seeds, cumin seeds, cloves, a little piece of cinnamon, and of course you can certainly use ground spices if you prefer to do so. I also have an onion that is thinly sliced, but if you're Jane and you'd like to leave that out, then you could use some grated ginger and a little pinch of asafoetida and you're good to go. So heat up some oil in your pan on medium-high, and I added a piece of onion so that I would know when the oil was hot enough before adding the rest of the onion. And then I simply cooked this until it was nice and caramelized. I did lower the heat to low about 2 minutes into this and just kept an eye on it from time to time, making sure to move the onions around. Now if you are using ginger instead, just flash fry that and then turn the heat right down because you don't want to scald the ginger. Then after these were nice and brown, I pushed them aside and allowed the oil to drain to one side of the pan. If you used less oil than I did, then you may have to add a few drops at this point. Otherwise, you are just going to add the whole spices into that oil, and I'm adding them one by one here, but that's only because I had them in separate little bowls, but you could throw them all in there at the same time. That would be perfectly fine. And don't leave them too long in that oil before you move them around. I feel like mine look a little bit scalded, and I don't remember, they might have been. But once they hit the oil, move them around. And then the next thing you have to do is add in your veggies. And if you're using different veggies than I am, that's okay too. Sometimes I put tomato in this, or really teeny tiny pieces of potato. It's all good. Don't forget to add some salt. I like to do this at this point so that the veggies are a little bit seasoned, but you could of course add it later on. And then add your pre-washed, pre-soaked rice. Incorporate your rice with the rest of the ingredients and allow this to toast on low heat for about 2 to 3 minutes. Now what I think makes this recipe work is the ratio of rice to water. I'm not so concerned about the vegetables or the onion. They don't really take up that much space. But I make sure to add 1.5 times the amount of water whenever I make this. I find that that gives me a very fluffy texture and doesn't allow the rice to become too sticky when it cooks. The other important thing is to make sure that you cook this on low heat, the absolute lowest heat that you have on your stove or element. This pulao will cook within 10 minutes on my stove. Now yours might be a little bit different. You'll probably have to keep an eye on it. It could be 12 minutes, it could be 11 minutes. But if you've pre-soaked that rice, it's not going to take a long time. And unlike my technique for cooking plain basmati rice, you do not have to bring this up to a boil first. So here's a look at my rice after 10 minutes of cooking. It's nice and fluffy. As you can see, the grains are perfectly separated and not at all sticky. Of course, what's better than the texture is the aroma. The spices are so fragrant, especially the cardamom and the cloves, and if you used whole spices, then I believe you will find it even more fragrant than if you used ground spices. You can of course enjoy this pulao on its own, or you could combine it into a larger meal, as I'm doing here. I'm just adding it to a thali, and I'm adding a little bit of raita, the Bombay potatoes from a couple weeks ago, and the tomato rasam from a week before that. If you'd like to know how to make each of these items, I will link them in the cards. Of course, I should say that rasam and Bombay potatoes are not something that you would really find in the same thali. They are from different regions of India, but the combination of all these items was really, really tasty. Of course, you don't have to take my word for it.
It's really good. Very nice, buddy. I love it. Is this dinner time already?
It can be.
No, it's too early.